From the Joy News Center. This is News at 8.
Welcome to the Primetime News Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. Coming up in this bulletin, Prime Minister assures Ghanaians an end to the current power crisis as measures are put in place to provide 1,000 megawatts of electricity in the short term. Also tonight, ECOWAS to develop common standard to test the efficacy of medicines produced within the sub-region. Department of Social Welfare places embargo on establishment of new orphanages to check the springing up of illegal ones created to exploit vulnerable children. Ahead of the upcoming elections in Nigeria, Islamist group Boko Haram has stepped up its attack as a female suicide bomber blows herself up in the city of Gombe minutes after President Goodluck Jonathan left a campaign rally there. We have all that plus business, sports, showbiz, and international news all coming up. Please stay tuned.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
All right, so we have quite a bit coming up on the energy crisis, but before we get into all of that, Ghana could see the rollout of its national gender policy this year. This is because the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection is about to finalize work on the policy which seeks to empower and improve the lives of women. Stakeholders from various free women's rights groups as well as government agencies have been meeting to validate contents of the policy before it is finally approved.
The policy, when adopted, is expected to empower women by reducing gender-based violence and the inequality gap. It is also expected to alleviate women and the vulnerable in society from extreme poverty and make justice accessible to them. Unlike many redundant policies, the Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister, Nana Oyelitha, is upbeat about the prospect of this new gender policy.
If we are able to get a district gender officer who knows her work or his work and who even has a template and make sure that gender mainstreaming happens at the district level and then informs us at the national level the gaps, the gender gaps, then we can pick it up at the national level. So we are looking at a strong structure for gender mainstreaming for the government of Ghana. And we believe if we do that, then we'll be able to address all the challenges and the several gender issues that we're facing, especially gender-based violence and other challenges that we're facing.
Drafting of the gender policy, which has been in the works for some 20 years now, is expected to begin later this year.
This year we'll start implementation. It depends on this is our final draft, so it depends on what the key stakeholders will say from today. But I'm envisaging that even after today, we'll have to maybe put up a team of about 3 or 4 experts, led by the chairperson, Mrs. Hilary Gbedema, who is our expert on gender even at the UN level. We have about 3 or 4 to finalize. So by June, we should have a final drafts for launch.
Nana Oyelitha stressed making the lives of women better was a priority for her ministry.
In a related development, Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister Nana Oyelitha has served notice that persons found culpable in the recent expose by investigative journalist Anas Aremeyaw will face the full rigors of the law. The documentary by the award-winning journalist shows the physical and sexual abuse orphans of the countryside children's welfare home at Bojasi in the Central Region endure daily.
The work by Anas Aremeyaw and his Tiger Eye crew revealed that more than 100 children in countryside children's welfare home are sexually abused, neglected and starved as donations by benevolent citizens are diverted. The Gender Ministry intends to vigorously pursue the case to the latter.
The government of Ghana is on top of this. We have collaborated with Anas and Tiger Eye, and we facilitated through Department of Social Welfare the rescue of the children 2 weeks ago. We set up a committee of 3 from Department of Social Welfare. The children are now in safe custody, and also the Attorney General has been briefed. The IGP has also been briefed, and there will be some prosecution. There's investigation ongoing.
Nana Oyelitha indicated her ministry has been closing down some orphanages which are not operating in accordance with the set guidelines.
We actually have a section of the Department of Social Welfare that actually regulates and monitors orphanages. If you remember, even last year, we placed a moratorium and told them that we're giving them a year, that they have to come and be licensed and make sure that they operate in accordance with government guidelines, that if they don't, we will close them down. And we even reported to the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament that we've closed down over 60 orphanages and that we are monitoring. There's a committee in place, even at the district level, which monitors.
According to her, the Department of Social Welfare, set up in 1946, will undergo a major restructuring in order to efficiently deal with issues of abuse.
The Department of Social Welfare has placed an embargo on the creation of new orphanages in the country. This is to forestall the springing up of illegal homes that are created to exploit vulnerable children. Acting Director of the Department, Comfort Asare, disclosed this in an exclusive interview with Joy News.
They are usually taken off the streets or saved from life-threatening situations and sent to foster homes to be taken care of. But some of these homes lack the requisite resources to cater for the well-being of these children, forcing many of them to find their way back to the streets. In a bid to solve this problem, the Department of Social Welfare has placed a ban on the creation of new foster homes. The department says too many illegal homes have sprung up over the years, making it difficult to distinguish between those genuinely taking care of vulnerable children and those set up purely as a wealth-creating venture to serve the parochial interests of owners.
But even now in Ghana, we are not encouraging the establishment of orphanages. We have stopped registering orphanages. So we are helping the already existing ones to build up their capacity and improve their standard. Yes, because when children grow up in institutions, we've come to realize that doesn't really help them. Every child has the right to grow up in a home, in a family. So we are encouraging children growing up in family settings. We don't want them to grow up in institutions. In fact, when they are in the institutions, they see themselves as people who have just come to a boarding school or something. They don't see themselves as siblings. And some of the training that goes on there too does not augur well for the children. Because in most of these homes, you go, the children, they wash for them, they cook for them, they clean for them. So some of them grow up not really knowing some of these little things that every child must know in a home. And we've been closing down all the bad orphanages that we've been coming across. We've been reintegrating children with families. We've been giving our children for adoption and for fostering. Yes, we also do our checks. We go around, we are able to identify some of the negative things that go on there. And when we are not satisfied with it, we advise that you help us to reunify the children back into the community.
But are these orphanages ready to accommodate more of these children? Here is Administrative Manager of the Tertiary Orphanage, Edward Mensah Ante.
Well, currently no, but probably in the future, yes, because we don't have resources to cater for so many children. We want to make sure that we give the best that we can give to the children, and therefore we don't actually think of having a lot of children where we can take care of them, but a reasonable number of children that we can take care of. This is an NGO, and our mission is to take care of orphans and deprived children in the society. This is also based on the resources that we have, because we can't accommodate a lot of children without taking good care of them. It is very important that we think that aspect of the child, and therefore we don't take in a lot of children where we cannot afford to take care of them.
Edward Ante also raised some concerns about the time spent by social welfare officials on monitoring these orphanages, saying it is inadequate and falls short of standard requirement.
Minister for Power, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, has promised an end to the current energy crisis by the end of 2015. Though not the first time such a promise has been made, the minister, who's been in office for just about 2 months, says he's ready to quit if he's unable to fulfill the promise. At a news conference on the current crisis, which appears to have worsened over the past month, the minister outlined a number of measures, both in the short and medium term, to address the problem, which he blamed mainly on a shortfall on the electricity available for distribution.
810 megawatts in the year 2008 to 2,845.5 megawatts as we speak today. Projected demand for this week is estimated at 2,109 megawatts. The total available generation is currently 1,494 megawatts peak and 1,338 megawatts off peak, respectively. This therefore leaves a deficit in generation capacity on the National Interconnected Transmission Network. As stated earlier, with installed generation capacity of 2,845.5 megawatts, dependable capacity of less than 2,300 megawatts, and a suppressed demand of about 2,130 megawatts with no redundancy, the power inadequacy is obvious. As of today, the following generating units are unavailable. 2 units at Akosombo cannot be operated, while the other 4 can only operate at reduced output of 125 megawatts each, instead of the rated 170 due to low water level. 1 out of 4 units at Kong is out of service for retrofit, and also for reasons of low hydrology, Kong units cannot also operate at full installed capacity. We runs 1 unit from 8 a.m. and up to 3 units for the peak period. TAPCO number 2 is limited to 60 megawatts due to high exhaust temperature spread and low tunnel temperature. TICO number 2 is down after a system trip, whilst unit number 1 is limited to 80 megawatts due to high exhaust temperature spread on the unit. Senate plant is down for hot gas path inspection. Half of Sonon Asogli plant is down due to contaminated lube oil. These have therefore led to supply inadequacies, leading to the current load shedding that we are experiencing. I wish to assure you that the Ministry of Power is working around the clock to end this current load shedding in the short term, and also to implement long-term measures to avoid future recurrence of load shedding. We therefore wish to appeal for your cooperation during these challenging times. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a particular adage which says that the darkest period of the night is the period just before daybreak. We assure you that we are closer to daybreak than we think.
Right, so that was the Power Minister, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, at the news conference earlier today. Now, the minister went on to say quite a number of things, and I have my colleague who was there at the news conference, Emmanuel Ante. He's joined me in the studio. Good evening to you, Ima.
Good evening.
At the end of this news conference, did you come away convinced that indeed we're going to see an end to this load shedding?
Easy to be frank with you, no. No, because we have had many promises, promises after promises. Even the president came out and said, read my lips. Doomso will end at so and so time. And yet, it's still getting worse. So I did not believe him one bit, him saying that we are going to end Dumso in so and so in this time, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so
I was not convinced.
maybe you were not convinced at the end of the news conference,
Yeah.
but I know that later on you engaged him in an interview.
Yeah.
Was there anything he said during that interview or in that interview that convinced you or somewhat convinced you that whatever he's saying is going to come to pass?
Yeah. It was the interview that really convinced me because he put his job on the line. He talked about the fact that if a certain time he's unable to do it, then he will resign. And he was saying that, and I believe that more because previously he's really made noise about this particular power issue.
Yeah.
And
he's in parliament and
yes,
you're a parliamentary
and at a point he even said that he has more knowledge on power than anybody else in Ghana. And so I believe that he wants to prove a point. And so with that particular information, I believe that he's really going to make sure he gets it once he puts his job on the line. Otherwise, it will be an embarrassment on his part. So I believe that he is going to. Let's hope.
Okay, let's hear what the minister had to say on this.
Those living at Chimotai and Malam, I really, on behalf of the agencies, apologize that we have had to carry a bigger burden than the rest of us in the country. But I've instructed ECG that even if Gridco has to knock out big quantum and therefore these two bulk supply points are affected, ECG should go back and then knock off some other areas and restore some of these areas so that their suffering will be mitigated. Yes, I will resign.
Right, so that was Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donko giving that assurance that he is indeed going to quit if the energy crisis, the current energy crisis, does not end by December 2015. We're taking a break. We'll be back with more stories on Go Away. Now, health advocates in Kumasi say the city is unlikely to meet the Millennium Development Goals on maternal and child mortality. Goals 4 and 5 of the MDG targets 2/3 reduction in maternal deaths and 3/4 in child deaths by the end of this year. Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin has more.
2014, however, showed stillbirths have reduced from 692 to 678 and maternal deaths from 137 to 121 from the previous year. It also indicates bleeding contributed to 38% of the cause of death last year. Local NGO Women's Health to Wealth identifies challenges in the implementation of the National Health Insurance as barriers to effective health service delivery. Nana Abena Ekuamoaboaten is president of the group and also regional coordinator for Millennium Cities Initiative for West and Central Africa. She wants authorities to address current shortfalls in the health sector to put the country in a better position to meet the MDGs. Nana Ekuamoaboaten spoke to Joy News at the annual performance review of the Kumasi Metro Health Directorate.
Kumasi as a city, as we heard from the Kumasi Metro Directorate report, will not be able to achieve those goals this 2015. I mean, you saw the figures for yourself. Though we have come a very long way, you know, there has been a lot of improvement. We have been able to reduce it, but not to the levels that are contained in the MDGs. We are still on the way, because you realize that to be able to do that, you have to look at the, you know, improving the capacity of the service providers so that they can provide an efficient service. When you are talking about quality, you are not only talking about the skills and knowledge of the service provider, you are also looking at where the service provider is operating. So then you are talking about the infrastructure, you are talking about the equipment, you are talking about the finances. And we are all aware of the problems that our health people are having with financing healthcare. I mean, you've heard, I don't need to repeat myself over this, health insurance not reimbursing them on time, creating difficulties for them in the area of equipment and then supplies and non-consumables that can affect, the service provision.
She highlights areas that need critical attention.
What we also have to look at is, it appears we have to step up the supervision at all levels in our facilities. It looks like, we got into that era where we said, oh, bibia, and therefore even a lot of our supervisors, have sort of relaxed on the job. So much as we are talking about improving infrastructure, making sure they have the necessary equipment and other drugs and facilities to work with, on the part of the service providers, we see that there is too much laxity. A lot of our supervisors are not doing their jobs. And we believe that if they improve the infrastructure, they improve the equipment, the drugs, the financing on that side, on the service provision side, training has gone on, people are well trained, but supervisors have to ensure people have to move from that laxity. And Ghana saying, yes, I say, but that doesn't mean that we leave these things like that. We need to step up our supervision.
Meanwhile, health officials in the region are strengthening their collaboration with private health facilities to provide quality health care to the people.
It's now time for business. I'm Abigail Adomakoenchi. We'll start with something on investment. And a senior economist with the West Africa Monetary Institute, Christian Ahoto, has called for a policy to ensure local participation in investments in the country. He says the policy should ensure that telecom companies and banks, particularly, are listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange to ensure profits trickle down to the masses.
Concerning foreign direct investments, we need it, but there must be a policy to ensure that locals participate in all the investments that will be made in this country. For instance, we have banks, we have telecom companies that are operating in Ghana. They are making quite substantially a profit. But if locals are not participating, the profits that are made in these sectors will not trickle down to the masses. So the suggestion is that the government should ensure or should make it a policy that telecom companies, the banks, they get listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange so that locals can participate, they can hold shares, and then any profit made could be shared. I think that is the way that we should go. I know Ghana Stock Exchange is making frantic efforts to make listing attractive, but the companies themselves must be willing to list. So two things. Yes, Ghana Stock Exchange should make it attractive, but the companies or the various businesses must also be willing to list on the stock exchange.
So away from investments, importers and exporters want government to give them a further education on how import duties are calculated. This, they hope, will enable them better appreciate the current charges or duty charges they are paying. The importers and exporters say the mode of calculation has shot up the charges, making it difficult for them to pay.
Declaration form, when you see the form that the importer normally used to go and pay duty. For example, for instance, if the importer is supposed to pay duty worth of the CIF value is about 100,000 Ghana cedis that he used the goods as the value of the goods. Maybe the custom officers or the DICs, the inspection companies, use 5% or 10% to calculate import duty. Now the amount that they've gotten from import duty, they will now add it on to the CIF value. So if 5% would have given you 10,000 Ghana cedis, they will now add that 10,000 Ghana cedis to the 100,000 Ghana cedis, making 110,000 Ghana cedis before the VAT duty will now be extracted from that. So it is not the best. We want government to come out, let the tax officers to come out and explain to importers and exporters in this country. If I'm paying VAT I should pay on the CIF value, not that what you take from the import duty. You then add it on. That means you are asking me to go and borrow money to come and pay that what my goods value is. It's not up to. All right, because I bring the goods, I say it's here 100,000 Ghana cedis. You've gotten the formula used in calculating the import duty is on 100,000 Ghana cedis. So the same 100,000 Ghana cedis should be calculated, 70.5 should calculate on the same 100,000 Ghana cedis and not 110.
Now to the Labour front. The Labour and Industrial Court in Accra will on Monday, February 16, clear technicalities holding up the resolution of Tier 2 pension disputes between government and the 12 labour unions. Lawyers for the Bank of Ghana and the unions concluded their argument on the central bank's application to strike out a counter-suit by the unions, which seeks to compel them to disclose details of the occupational pension funds held at the central bank. Lawyers for the 12 unions today mounted a strong argument to counter a similar one put forth by lawyer for the central bank, Samuel Kuju, last week. The Bank of Ghana wants the court to throw out a counter-suit brought by the unions to rope them into the dispute with government over its occupational pension funds. But the central bank says it holds the money in trust for government, whilst the MPRA sets up the structures for the appointment of trustees and other fund managers, arguing it does not owe the workers any disclosures. The Bank of Ghana took custody of the Occupational Pensions Fund 5 years ago and has since kept the money without investing to improve its value. This, according to lead counsel for the 12 labour unions, Akuto Ampao, raises questions over the central bank's sincerity in managing the fund. But lawyer for the Bank of Ghana, Samuel Kojo, said the decision to invest the monies lies not with the bank, but rather the owners. We'll end the business news on that note. I'm Abigail Adomakwenchi, but do stay tuned for George Adi Jr., who comes up next with sports.
Well, now time for some sports, and we have to talk about the Black Stars getting themselves ready for that all-important clash against Equatorial Guinea. And the Black Stars return to training on Monday evening without their captain Asamoah Gyan and the 11 players that started the quarter-final game against Guinea. Gyan has been flown to Mongomo to take an MRI scan to ascertain the severity of his suspected groin injury sustained at the tail end of Sunday's win over the Silly National of Guinea. Coach Avram Grant presided over the session at the La Paz training facility in Malabo. We've been speaking to some of the Black Stars players who are very optimistic of a win against Equatorial Guinea on Thursday.
I'm thinking of the next game against Equatorial Guinea, which will be tougher than this game, so that's more important. I don't know, I cannot predict the future, but everything is in God's hand, and we are working towards the future.
Absolutely fantastic. Obviously, to get off the mark in a competitive game for Ghana is massive for me, and I'm delighted with that.
And you contributed a lot more to the other goals that were scored as well.
I appreciate that. Obviously, it's a team game, and everybody's got their bit to give, and hopefully I did that today.
What do you know about the Equatorial Guinea team?
I'll soon find out. You know, we'll have some meetings this week and see what's what, and we'll go from there.
We had a great job. We had a clean sheet. Now we need to continue like that. I think what's important is that we shouldn't get solely headed. We haven't done anything. Now we're in the semis. We have to do everything to get into the final. But Ghana has done a great job today, and I want to congratulate the squad.
We will just prepare to go and face them, that's all. We are not favorites, we just prepare and go and meet them.
Well, I think it's a bit refreshing, the air around the team. They said they are looking ahead to win that game, and they know they still have to clear their heads, because everyone really is expecting the Black Stars to come home with a trophy, and that's what we'll be finding out on Thursday. There will be another game on Wednesday. That will be the other semi-final game. That will be between Ivory Coast and DR Congo. And head coach of Ivory Coast, Hervé Renard, says complacency would not play a part in their build-up after similar failed attempts to annex the trophy.
I think the Ivory Coast team is very lucky to have just behind Didier Drogba, a big center forward like Wilfried Bony, because I think you know very well the statistic. He was the best scorer in England in 2014. So I think when you just say that, you can explain everything.
Some quick updates on what's happening just outside the pitch and what's really going on in the African Cup of Nations. And we can talk about referee Rajan Drapazat Sechum. He was the man who officiated in the game between Equatorial Guinea and Tunisia and actually awarded a controversial Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinal win of Equatorial Guinea. That's over Tunisia there. There was a penalty that was awarded and the Tunisians were not excited about that. CAF has sent a strong message by sending him home. So what it means is that whoever is going to take charge of the Black Stars game against Equatorial Guinea will be hopeful that will do a fantastic job. The Mauritanian has paid the price for his dubious penalty call, which allowed the host to equalize in stoppage time. That's the news coming in from the Africa Cup of Nations. So we'll find out how all the teams pan out. In the meantime, we're yet to conclude exactly what is happening to Black Stars captain Asamoah Gyan. He's been flown into Montgomery. We'll find out tomorrow what the update is on that injury. That'll be all for sports tonight. I'm George Adde Jr. Israelite will join us with some more. You have a good night.
Welcome back to the Primetime News Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. The Fulani immigrants or migrants arrested in the Volta region are yet to be transported back to their country. The driver of the bus was reported to have dumped them at Dambai, refusing to cross the Oti River. The Fulanis themselves then hired 2 Benz buses and were heading to Chinderi when they were intercepted.
They were moving with personal belongings, including cooking pots, mattresses, beds, mortars and pestles, a dismantled motorbike with Nigerian registration number plate and other things packed in sacks. Upon interrogation, the immigrants told the police they were traveling to one Alhaji Kaduna in Chindiri to herd his cattle. Meanwhile, the said Alhaji Kunduna has denied expecting herdsmen from Nigeria. The leader of the Fulanis, Alhaji Atiku Adam, later said he was moving with his family and relatives to herd some cattle he brought into the country 2 years ago, adding that he has been living in Ghana for the past 9 years. He also said they entered Togo through Abidjan and used unauthorized routes to enter the territories of Ghana. 48 of the Fulani immigrants were transported to Ho and are seeking refuge at the residence of the Volta Regional Minister. Meanwhile, the Ghana Immigration Service is yet to finish processing the immigrants and transport them back to their country of origin. Fred Kwame Asare's report for Joy News.
And we'll bring you showbiz next. Stay tuned. Now, it appears the potential of visual arts to generate revenue for the country has still not been fully exploited. Ghanaian artist Kweku Afrikapa says it is high time government focused on developing the visual arts by adding more museums which can be used, among others, as art exhibitions to raise revenue for the country.
The seeming neglect of the visual arts industry stems partially from the fact that many Ghanaians tend not to appreciate works by visual artists. Apart from the lack of appreciation, there's also the challenge of low level of support from artists. Kweku Afrikapa, an artist with over 20 years of experience, says it's time for Ghanaians to change their mindset about the visual arts. He suggests government invest more in the sector by building more museums to help whip up interest and generate revenue from the sector.
For here, we don't know the value that we can build museums and put them in. But over there, they are doing it. And you pay. I read from Art News. America make about $149 billion every month just to visit a contemporary museum to watch. $149 billion every month. But Ghanaian government is still sitting down. You go there, oh, Bole has money. And we have the land, we have the houses. They can turn them into museums. They can make money.
According to Kweku Africaba, the type of works exhibited in our museums is an indication of the value we place on art.
Go to a museum, what is there? Nothing. All these scraps, and they tell you, so antiques. Nothing. To me, it's nothing. Because preservation is very important. If a country lost its history, then it's a problem. What others have done, that's what we learn from it. I became what I became because I was visiting a library, British Council. It's no more, the library is no more. I was reading from the past of the old painters.
Kweku Africaba is a talented artist who has over the years developed his own unique style of art.
And that'll be all for showbiz. And that'll be all for the bulletin. Before we go, though, a quick run through our top stories. The Power Minister has assured the Ghanaians there will be an end to the current energy crisis as measures have been put in place to provide at least 1,000 megawatts of power over the short term. The Department of Social Welfare has placed an embargo on the creation of orphanages as a way to check the indiscriminate establishment of orphanages created to exploit vulnerable children. And ahead of the upcoming elections in Nigeria, Islamist group Boko Haram has stepped up its attack as a female suicide bomber blew herself up in the city of Gombe minutes after President Goodluck Jonathan left a campaign rally there. And that'll be all. My name is Israel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening.